Career Transitions is sponsored by and produced in cooperation with the Butler University Lacey School of Business graduate programs. For more information, visit butler.edu. Hi, and welcome to another edition of Career Transitions. This is a podcast designed to help you make the leap to the next job, that dream job, or launch that new career. I'm Eric Birch, along with Jonathan Jordan, who is a career coach and consultant. Thank you for being here again, Jonathan.
Thank you again for having me, Eric.
We are speaking about emotions this time. It's something that we're just going to have kind of a free association conversation about, but it's something that's important. It's something that's going to happen to anyone who's involved in a career transition, unless you're in that 1/10 of 1% that has a career transition in mind and gets it done in 2 weeks. It takes time. And because it takes time, and sometimes it takes effort that you've not put into your career in some time, and it takes remembering that what every actor knows and what every salesperson knows is that it comes with a lot of rejection. It can, certainly. So there are a lot of emotions involved. There's a lot of emotional roller coasters because regardless of what the position is that you're trying to attain, it could be that you get just so far and drop back, and it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or 1 step forward and 2 steps back. There are things involved in this process that will impact you beyond the professional. It will impact you emotionally. It could impact you personally. And those are things that you have to be aware of, that you have to be guarded against or prepared for. Those are things that will, over time, impact you. And there are things you can do to keep them from impacting. There's things that you have to remember in this process. As a career coach, these are things that you see all the time. And certainly, as we go through this particular podcast, we're going to talk about some of the experiences that you have had in dealing with people with that kind of emotional roller coaster and the things that they are dealing with. But there is a reason that this happens, and people have to understand now in this day and age that you don't just get a job out of college and stay there.
No. There's some interesting statistics that I uncovered years ago that said the mantra of cradle to grave job with the same employer that pretty much has been a steadfast objective in this country since World War II has been enjoyed by about 9% of the workforce only. Meaning that about 9% of the U.S. workforce since World War II, and it fluctuates from year to year, of course, has enjoyed cradle-to-grave employment with the same company. That means that, 91% of us have had multiple jobs with multiple employers and still had terrific degrees. So when I teach an MBA class these days, and certainly when I talk to undergraduate students, I say that in a 40 or 50-year career, and most young people now, because you're going to be living longer and you're going to need the money to survive longer, you might live well into your 80s and even 90s, it's going to be logical, rational, reasonable for you to work beyond 40 years, maybe 45, even 50 years. You're probably going to go through 10 major career transitions in that period of time. What does a major career transition mean? Well, it could be many things. It could be as simple as a significant promotion, where you're in a nice employer and you see a job posting, or your boss or a peer suggests that you apply for another job. It used to be pretty easy to do that. Today, it's as competitive to land a promotion in a well-run organization as it is to land a new job with a new company. And so there's a significant amount of work in being competitive, not only with internal candidates, but with external candidates, even in an internal promotion. And you might have 2 or 3 major ones of those where you're doubling or tripling your salary and benefits in one promotion. But even more likely, Eric, is that you're going to be jumping ship from company to company 6, 7, 8 times in a 40, let alone a 50-year career, where you will have to get yourself emotionally geared up beyond the technical and the strategic issues that are part and parcel with a comprehensive career search, you're also going to have to get yourself emotionally ready for what typically is a 6 month to a year comprehensive career transition. And that emotional preparedness takes on many forms. Can I give you one example?
Sure.
You're going to be rejected, just like you would if you were doing anything where you're sticking your neck out and presenting yourself to the public. The vast majority of opportunities are not good fits. They say there are 20 million employers in this country alone. And in any one month, there are something like 2 million changes of jobs, job openings, firings, downsizings, et cetera. So there's lots of churn. You're not likely to be a good fit, and I'm speaking in general, even with those that are high potentials out there. None of us are likely to be good fits in maybe 90% of the jobs out there. They're either low-level entry positions, or they're senior positions that we're not quite ready for, or they're doing all kinds of things that we just simply have no interest in doing. So you're looking at culling out those jobs into the 10% that are potentially a good fit. Well, we don't know that they're a good fit until we start the conversation. And in that conversation, you're going to find lots and lots of opportunities where people say, thank you, no. And most hard chargers are devastated when, especially if you've had some career success, you think of yourself as being highly qualified and quite skilled. When people in the public, especially in good companies and good people, say, Mary, you have terrific skill sets, you have terrific experience, but that's not what we're looking for in this position. That's hurtful. And I'm suggesting to you, having worked with thousands of folks in career transition in the last 40 years, that you're going to have to figure out some way to get over that. At least enough to see yourself through, again, a 6 month to a year-long process of hopefully, can I say this without offending our audience, being rejected lots. Because if you're rejected a lot of times, it means in my mind that you're sticking your neck out enough to be rejected, and in the process you will also uncover the gold mines. The terrific opportunities out there that are as close to your dream job, if not surpass your dream job, in the process.
I think it's important, too, to have that sense of well-being in the process, that you feel comfortable enough to do those Hail Marys that we've talked about before, that every once in a while, that, if you're doing this 100 times, just picking out a number, 100 times, 2 of them, 3 of them, 5 of them, 10 of them are the ones that, that'd be an amazing job to have. And I might not be there just quite yet, but let's just give it a try. And so have that kind of, that sense of understanding of yourself and the belief in your own abilities to go forward, that you can occasionally find yourself in a position where you're going to make that Hail Mary leap, that big one, go for the brass ring, if I can use yet another old cliche metaphor. Sure.
And my assumption when I'm coaching folks at all stages of their career is that you have ambition sooner or later to go after your dream job. In most cases, you don't even know what that is, or you're able to define only bits and pieces of it, and that's logical because all of us, even folks with lots of gray hair who have been around the block many, many times, know so little about the totality of the market that we can describe things only in sketchy terms, in terms of what we'd like to parachute in and enjoy. That's perfectly fine. I'm making the assumption, therefore, that you do want to spend time and effort to go after your dream job. By the way, that also means, because this is a long process, that you're probably going to have to land a bridge job once or twice in this 6 month to a year if you want to financially stay viable. Perfectly fine. I have lots and lots of very fun, successful stories of clients who went to work for Target were going after a $350,000 a year job, had graduate of the Wharton School of Finance, dripped with experience and skills at high levels of leadership. But in order to survive this period of time, especially those who were between jobs, got a bridge job as simple as a cashier at a red Target store, and had a blast spending, in many cases, part-time, 4 or 5 hours a day, in filling an important need.
I have a suggestion along those lines. If you need a bridge job and you just want to do something that somebody I know did, FedEx, get a job throwing packages. The thing about it is it's just something, obviously. It's a bridge for many people. Sometimes it's a career for others. But if you're just throwing packages, you don't have to pay for the CrossFit anymore.
Yes. And a successful career search takes only maybe 3 or 4 hours a day, an hour or two every other night. It's not a full-time job. And after 2 or 3 weeks, especially if you're a hard charger and you've never had a career transition gap before, if you are unemployed, you will be fairly pins and needles, anxious, overly anxious about finding something faster than the market is really geared to do. So please help yourself, help your spouse, help your kids, help your family by considering the bridge job. And with the one caveat, and I tell everyone this on the bridge job, do whatever you want, simple, complex, full-time, part-time, but make sure that you carve out enough energy and enough time every week to continue the search to your dream job. In other words, don't take a bridge job and then be totally exhausted at the end of every day and have no energy for weekends, because you're doing yourself a great service by dropping your standards down to a bridge job, when in fact the bridge job was just to support you temporarily while you continued to search for your dream job.
So you had, over your career, have had a number of clients, people that you know, that have approached it perhaps in a less than honest way, or not honest is probably not the right word, but an open-minded way, and thought that I'm just start this career transition and it's going to happen like that.
Yes. Can I give you one story? I have many fun, some of them sober stories. I had a client who was 25 years a senior executive with Sears, and his dad had been a career person with Sears. I don't know if I've told you this story, Eric. And he had just 3 days beforehand received his typical outstanding performance review. And the day before I met him, his boss walked into him like so many companies do and so many outstanding employers have done to them. And he said, basically, Jim, yesterday you walked on water, today not so much. And he was unceremoniously fired, canned, let go right then. And so he came into my office the next day and said, Jonathan, I've never not had a job. I've never been in a household, including my dad's and mom's, where the main breadwinner wasn't working. I need a job and I need it tomorrow, so tell me how to do that. And I said, Jim, we'll use his name, Jim, I appreciate your anxiety, I really do. I appreciate your ambition, I really do. I appreciate your expectation of finding a job tomorrow, I really do, but that's not how the world works. Jim, you're likely to be with me, and we were delightfully so, at least 3 months, and it could, Jim, especially at your level, because you are a senior executive, it's more likely to be 6 months to a year. And he almost collapsed in a faint right in my office. So we rolled up our sleeves and gave him all kinds of assignments. And 2 weeks later, he comes back and says, my neighbor's complaining because I've now redone my garage, cleaned it out 4 times. And my neighbor doesn't like me banging and crashing and doing all the things. I said, slow down. It's not about you being ready. You're ready. We're all ready as good job candidates once we get ourselves packaged to start tomorrow. Unfortunately, there's another side of this equation, and that is the market. And the market is much slower than we are, much more deliberate, not nearly as fast as we think it should be, or not nearly as fast as we want it to be, but it is what it is.
I think, and also it depends on the level that you're going for in terms of that length of time. The lower the job, the quicker, they need you at Kroger's tomorrow, and they'll probably bring you in at that point. But if you're going for the CEO or you're going for the vice president or something like that, they're going to take their time. They want to have the right candidate. They want to make sure you're the right person. They're going to take some time. And it also depends on the industry or where you are. I mean, spending so many years as I did in broadcasting, you could have a job one day and no job the next because somebody came in and had a different idea of what should be going on in the radio station or the radio station would be sold. But it depends on the industry how often that might happen and how long it takes you to find another position. I have found in the world of higher education, if you're looking to work for a university, they take forever to make a decision and to hire people and even to acknowledge the fact that you applied.
Yes, there are many Fortune 500 companies, for example. We have one here that's based in Indianapolis that prides themselves and has for decades, taking at least 6 months to hire someone at any level from the moment, and that doesn't start until the moment the first interview happens. Now, 6 months for most job candidates is hell on earth to go through this agony of interview after interview and then long gaps, sometimes 6 weeks or more between the last conversation and the next. But employers, in spite of the technology gains, have not increased the efficiency of bringing on new people at any level at all that I see in the last 30 years. And the other piece of this puzzle is that's always frustrated me and millions of other people is that today still, from an accounting finance standpoint, there's nothing that shows up on the P&L when you take 6 months to replace someone. Nobody gets fired. Nobody gets dinged. Nobody gets a performance review, a bad mark, when they stall, delay, or just arbitrarily kind of backwards walk through replacing especially key employees, when we know that this is an opportunity lost from the organization standpoint, yet from an accounting standpoint, that never shows up. And so to the audience here, don't expect this process to change. It will continue to take months.
It also seems to be what you're going for. It has some bearing on it as well, because I wouldn't want to keep anybody from applying for this type of situation, but it is something to be aware of. If it's a new job, if it's a new position to the company, they're not replacing someone, but it's an addition. It's some area where they decided to expand or whatever the reason would be to add an additional position as opposed to replacing somebody. That can take longer than you would want or expect because they're still thinking about whether they want to have that job or what that, and they're not replacing someone, so somebody's already doing that the work or whatever it might be. So it's not like they have to hurry up and get somebody in there. They're going to take longer, especially if it's a new position, to get that.
Yes, and can I add that many companies, large and small, start the interview process with really before the budget is secure. So may I charge each one of our audience members in the interview, in the first session, in the first 10 minutes of the session, ask the question or present the scenario, I'm here as a serious candidate, is this job fully funded? And if they hem and haw, know that perhaps you should back off from pursuing this as aggressive as you might otherwise, because they're not indicating yet, and may not indicate for some time, whether in fact they're committed to hiring the right candidate.
I think if you want to get there with being a little less aggressive with it, questions like when do you plan on hiring? When do you want to fill this position? Where's the person who held this position before? Have they moved up in the company? And that I've had that in a couple of different interviews where I've asked that question, and they've kind of spilled out, well, this is a brand new position, and we're hoping it's not on the budget until January of 2020, and all of a sudden it's changes the whole perspective of what the job might be.
Yes, and hopefully Eric and I are going to have a podcast on how to lead an interview in the 21st century, and we're going to cover how you should be perhaps a bit more, if not a lot more aggressive, nicely with a big smile on your face, in terms of engaging the employer so that you, the job candidate, is as well informed about this job, certainly much more than you perhaps have been in the past, knowing that things like not really having a secure budget may be the case.
This podcast is sponsored by and produced in cooperation with the Butler University Lacey School of Business graduate programs. A business school on the rise, experiencing tremendous growth in both enrollment and academic quality, the Andre Lacey School of Business at Butler University. It supports the long-term vision to foster further interaction between Butler students and the business community. Check out the growing list of graduate programs available through the Butler University Lacey School of Business by visiting butler.edu.
So let's talk about the roller coaster here. What would you say to somebody who's walked in your office and said, that I've lost my job and I'll have another one tomorrow?
I would say, are you a fan of The Wizard of Oz? It just doesn't happen that way. I suppose if all you are looking for is an entry-level position, you can walk into McDonald's this afternoon and fill out the form, and because the job market is hot right now, they will, in 10 minutes, if you're breathing, they'll hire you and you can start tomorrow. But I don't believe our audience is entry-level interested. I believe our audience are college grads. I believe many of them have advanced degrees. And I also believe that if you aren't mid-career and already have a sense of aspiration, that you are ambitious and you're well beyond entry-level positions. And therefore, ergo, it's going to take a while, again, 6 months to a year. Can I give you one exception? I had a hard charger graduate of West Point who walked into my office and said, my wife demands that in 90 days I have a check that's ready to be deposited to the bank. And I said, let's use his name, Eric. No, let's not use that. Let's use the name Larry. I said, Larry, this is not really likely, but if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do double, triple time, even knowing that the market is much slower, I'm willing to partner with you. So guess what? We got him a desk and an office and a phone and a computer and all the technology that was necessary. He was 3 or 4 offices down from me. He came in at 7 o'clock every morning, Monday through Saturday, and stayed until 7 o'clock at night. And we kept feeding him referrals after referrals after referrals, and he did all of the packaging. He got his portfolio whipped together in about 2 weeks. He networked like a phenom, and in 90 days, it was a little after his wife wanted, but in 90 days he got an offer. It's the fastest I have ever seen it happen. Again, it's typically 6 months to a year, but he was able to do it in 90 days only because he was putting in 12 hours a day, nearly 60 hours a week, and for him it worked. Can I give you another story about a disappointing coaching? We can get back to this story that I was telling you. The same client who was so anxious that he reorganized his garage 4 times in 2 weeks. He, about 2 months into it, he got an interest from another big box. This was the same fellow that came from Sears. And he came into the office and he said, I'm so excited. I said, Jim, don't be excited, because this is likely to be the first offer, if in fact you do get an offer, and I'm going to suggest that you flatly turn it down. And he was near hysterical. He said, Jonathan, what kind of a coach are you? If this is a decent offer, I'm taking it. I said, Jim, don't. Because even if you do get an offer, it's not likely to be the best offer. It's certainly not likely to be close to your dream job. And I'm suggesting to you that you go through the process, because the practice will be good. You do all the things that you do well, and you convince them that you are the next thing to slice bread, and get the offer. But I'm suggesting that you turn it down. So I'll try to make this too long a story shorter. He got an offer. He went through the process, and 2 weeks after he started the interview, they called him and said, you've got the job. And this was a senior vice president position, one of, I think, about 15 that they had, and the next position up was the CEO. And so he comes into my office telling me the good news, and I said, Jim, sit down. Remember what I suggested to you? You're going to turn this offer down. He said, it's exactly what I was making before. The benefits meet my spouse's expectations, yada, yada, yada. The city that it's in, although not the city that we live in now, is okay. I said, all that sounds terrific, except I think there's a much better offer right around the corner, because he had been doing lots and lots of good work. So I thought he was going to kill me right then. Fortunately, he didn't.
Fortunately.
And 2 days later, he called me and said, I turned it down. And I said, you're probably depressed. You're probably emotionally drained. Your spouse probably is not happy at all with me, because at the very least this means more time
In the garage,
and with no guarantees. And I know you don't have anything in the pipeline yet, but be patient, because it's not the first offer, but it's the second or third or fourth one, if you are doing your work, that are best. The rest of the story is that there was good news. Within about 3 weeks, he got a call from a much better big box, and today is the number 2 position at this firm. And he admittedly is delighted that he was patient and waited.
Well, good on him for taking that leap. So let's talk a little bit. I mean, some of the things that we've talked about, at least heretofore in this free associating podcast, was to talk about the emotional roller coaster. And we've dealt with perhaps one aspect when the start of the transition was not necessarily at your suggestion or request or anticipated expectation that you were going to have to do this transition right then and there. What about those who are in a good job, or in a job that they're okay with, that's at least relatively stable as any job is in this day and age? What do you say to those people? How do they prepare for that 3 to 6 month roller coaster ride, or a year when you're working someplace else and trying to get there? How do you prepare for something like this, if you can?
Good question, and everybody does this a little differently. Everybody is in a different kind of emotional situation. They're certainly in a different family situation. Some folks have such a horrible boss that they just can't muster the energy, the emotional drive to even continue on with the job. And I counsel them, to the extent that it's not end of the world boss and job, to hang in there as long as you can, because it does help in the transition. When you are totally unemployed, whether you have a bridge job or not, it's a little different emotionally, perhaps a little bit more roller coaster than it is when you do have a job, even if it's one that you're desperately trying to get out of. Number 2, I coach everyone to say, during a successful career transition, you're probably going to have to do a quick assessment of friends and family. And that assessment is as follows. You need, in this particular case, because it is emotionally draining, to avoid friends and family that are not supportive. We all have friends and family, God love them, who are our dearest compatriots when times are good. But darn it all, when times are tough, they're not quite as helpful emotionally as we need them to be. And in some cases, they're outright critical. And I suggest to everyone who is going through that, who is experiencing a family or a member or a friend, to do some serious adjustment, at least for a temporary period of time, and ask them or tell them that you love them dearly, but for the next few months, you're going to spend a little bit less time with them because you need to spend all of your emotional energy on this job search, this career transition. And that seems to have worked out with many, many people. Can I give you another story about rejection? I've had the privilege of working with 2 Fortune 500 CEOs, one gal and one guy. And the story I'm going to tell is about one of them who was unceremoniously let go by the board the day before I arrived up in his Chicago office. And imagine, audience, the typical Hollywood movie of the CEO where you walk in and it's 3 secretaries before you get to even his outer office. And then it's a double-door entrance to his office, and I'm followed by a bodyguard plus his most senior secretary as I enter his office, which is as big as a Midwestern dairy barn. I mean, it is huge. It's wall-to-wall walnut paneling. It has its own mini library, its own bar, 2 or 3 sitting areas, its own bathroom, on and on and on. And it's on the top floor of this downtown Chicago office building. He reaches out his hand. He's still sitting in his desk because they've given him a month to in a transition, and they're hiring me to help him in this period of time. And so we exchange a few pleasantries, and before I even say boo after the pleasantries, he turns to me and he says, "Jonathan, do you see that Rolodex on my desk?" I said, "Yes." We'll give him a name of Eddie. "Yes, Eddie, it's very impressive." It was a huge Rolodex. For some of our younger audience, a Rolodex that he was referring to is an old paper thing that you have names and addresses and contact information.
It was your address book, yeah, before it was on your phone.
It was not electronic, let me put it that way. And it was huge. It probably was bigger than a basketball. And it had, according to him, 1,500 names on it. And he said, "Jonathan, I appreciate why you're here, but I don't need your help. Because do you see that Rolodex? Somebody's going to call me, and probably starting tomorrow. And by this time next week, I'll have 2 offers. So thank you very much, and I apologize for you having to make the trip from Indy. I understand that's where your home is. But in this particular case, thank you, but no." So we spent another 2 or 3 minutes exchanging pleasantries, talking about the weather and family, and I got up, shook his hand, and walked out. And just before I opened the double doors, I turned to him and said, "Eddie, would it be okay if I called you in about a month?" He said, "Sure. I'll be at my new job, and I'll give you all the great news." I said, "Terrific." So a month later, I called him. And as soon as I introduced myself, he could not talk. He was sobbing on the phone. So I didn't say anything. I let him kind of collect himself. And I said, "Eddie, how are you?" And he said, "Jonathan, the most horrible thing has happened." And I was ready for all kinds of, accidents and ill health and all that. And I said, What happened, Eddie?" He said, "Do you remember that Rolodex?" I pointed to, and I said, "Yeah, it was really impressive, Eddie." He said, "No one has called me." He said, "I thought they were friends, and I thought I was somebody." Not one phone call in a month. And I said, Eddie, welcome to my world. This is the way humanity works. No one, whether you're a CEO or a janitor, is likely to contact you first, partly because you haven't given them permission, and partly because they don't really know that you need their help. It has been my experience, Eddie, that if and when you take the opportunity to reach out to them by either phone or email or text, or slap them on the shoulder in the next cocktail party that you go to, and tell them that you could use their help, they will be gushy, effervescent in the help that they will provide, far more than you could probably ever need. But you, Eddie, are going to have to make the first step.
That's a hard step for a lot of people. I mean, that's a difficult road to go down for someone perhaps in that position who's had that much success and that much, well, for lack of a better word, ego.
Yes.
And to call
and it's
somebody
terrible
to
rejection.
think about, and to think about the fact that you have to call, and that's one of the emotional things you've got to get past, is learning how to understand that they're not necessarily going to think poorly of you.
No.
They're going to want to help. This is the call you have to make, and really have to buck up a little bit. And it's difficult. I can tell you, it's difficult to call people that you've worked with and were so proud of what you were doing and the relationship, the professional relationship you had, and have to turn around and say, I'm no longer there, and I need
help.
I need your help.
Your help. Yes. It's hard for all of us to do at any level, but it's so necessary to open up the floodgate of the help that will come.
So being prepared to say those words, I need your help. And even if it's not in a situation where you've lost your job, but you want to improve your station, you want to do better, you want to be someplace else, somewhere else, because sometimes that's the transition, not necessarily that it's up the corporate ladder where you are, but there's someplace else you want to be, whether it is warmer or colder or higher or lower. It doesn't really matter. You want to be somewhere else, and so you find yourself in this transition. So even if you have a job, or you're stable or not in facing the 3 months out in the garage rearranging, you still have to be ready to call people and say, I need your help.
Yes, you have. We all have to initiate that. But if we do, we will all be surprised, pleasantly so, at the response, and it will be a genuine offer to help by so many people, but each one of them needs to be contacted by us. It's a phenomenon that I wouldn't, at 21, if you had told me this story, I would say that doesn't make sense. That's not how the world works. But I have learned that it absolutely is. And it is part of the rejection, part of the emotional change that we all need to do in order to be successful in our careers. We need to be, if humble is the right word, okay, we need to be humble in a career transition, whether we are unemployed or still with the firm, and ask for help. Can I say something that is gender related? Women, I have found, are a little better at this ability to ask for help. Men, less so. So men, may I speak to you for just a moment? Stop doing that. Stop thinking that you can solve all of your career transition issues between your two ears. You cannot. We all men and women, need help. And that help can come from a career coach like me, but far more importantly, can come from your network and people who are family, who already know you, and friends, and ultimately referrals, total strangers who will be even more help if you can be humble enough to ask their help.
And I think if you have the realization that you need to ask, and at some point in time also pay it forward. if you find yourself in a position, that's what the thing I would say and hope that everyone would take away. And that is that the concept of paying it forward is very important. If you call out to your network and it's not the person who takes your call the first call, it's the person who takes your second call and your third call, and that's the person to be the bedrock, the foundation of your network. If those people will do it for you, you not only have to be able to do it for them, but the next person who calls, or the friend of a friend, or the network, you're building a network with people that you might not know, and being able to pay forward that opportunity, that ability to help somebody network with somebody else, or help someone make that career transition from one place to another. I've had it in my own life, and just recently, about people who I know through you, and I have met and started to get to know a little bit better, but they're willing to step up because somebody stepped up for them.
Yes. It's reciprocity at its finest. I help you because I know that I've been helped in the past, or I know that I will need to be helped in the future.
Not necessarily someone who's going, saying, yeah, I'll help you because you're going to help me. I'm going to help you because somebody helped me before. Or that if I help you, I know that you will in turn help someone else and grow the network and grow that relationship and grow the ability to have a transition. You know where they've been. That's the thing. So you find these people who I've been where you are. I have been marching. I talked to a CEO just last week. I have been where you are, and I would like to help you.
And we're talking about the emotional side. Networking, as we're talking about it, is a high-energy activity. And most people reject it outright because it's talking to strangers about ourselves, two things that most people find to be the devil. Yet it's the most important aspect of a successful career transition, especially as you get higher skilled, more experience, and have higher ambitions about more responsibility in the market. You're going to need to network because those are the people that can find the dream jobs for you.
So we've come to the end of our time for today, and I do want to entreat our audience to take the opportunity to reach out to us. Tell us what you might think about the career transition, the emotional roller coaster that you've been in or on, and how you might be able to pay it forward for others. So write to us at our email address, which is careertransitionspodcast@gmail.com. Once again, this is Career Transitions. We enjoyed having you here today listening, and we appreciate the fact that Jonathan was here as well.
Thank you for inviting me again, Eric.
Career Transitions is sponsored by and produced in cooperation with the Butler University Lacey School of Business graduate programs. For more information, visit butler.edu.